Okay. Call to order this Topsham Select Board meeting from the Donway Russell Meeting Room, February 1st, 2024. I'll rise to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, overall, I just wanted to wish Patty well. She's out tonight, so we'll do that for her. Roland Tufts here. Matt Nixon. Yes, sir. Marie Brilland is absent. Brian Holmes. Here. And Ann Callahan.
Here.
First, myself, Town Manager, and Assistant Town Manager Walls, Fire Chief McClellan, and Planning Department is here. Director Irving. And this guy.
Good attendance. Okay, town manager's report.
Okay, same report as last time. I just want to remind everyone that the March presidential primary will be held on March 5th at Mount Ararat High School. Applications to request an absentee ballot are available at Town Hall. The Mid-Coast Community Action Program will be taking HILEAP, which is low-income heating energy assistance. Walk-in applications on February 26th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Right here in the Don Russell Meeting Room. And, the fire chief asked me to put this out, but if any resident would like to help our fire department this winter, clearing snow around the town's fire hydrants, following snow events would be tremendously helpful and very much appreciated. I'm not sure if he's going to be delivering snacks to the residents for doing that, but we're working.
We can.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Board and committee reports and updates. Update on the Topsham Development Inc. Board, it's Kurt Newton.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, we are.
Kurt Newfeld, I'm the president of the Topsham Development Inc. Derek suggested this was a good time for me to come and update you folks. I think I was here last fall or so. At that time, we had been looking to do some sort of rate housing report. And it was completely avalanched with data, didn't know how to make sense out of it, and realized we can't solve this problem. So we put a pin in that. Since then, I believe I discussed with you at the time, we did hire Owen Haskell to complete a survey of the Topsham Fair Mall Road from south of the roundabout all the way up north to the intersection at 196, including the Hooker entrance. Got that, I'm reviewing it now, just received the final version of that last week. Once myself and Andrew Sturgeon, who's my vice chair, who's also an engineer, we'll look it over. We'll provide that to the town staff, both paper and digitally, and that can really help inform taking some of the planning steps for improving that corridor to the next level. One of the things that just came up in the meeting was if a traffic circle was pursued at Park Drive, how would that work and how much land would be needed? Now that we have updated surveys, we can really answer those sorts of questions. I think this can be a real value. Got a couple new select board members. I just wanted to remind everybody and welcome. A year ago or so, we TDI commissioned a company called Camoin to do a market analysis for the area. There are copies of that with the town. That focused on hospitality, housing, businesses, areas such as that. Important to know that with these things are always a snapshot in time. So the economic situation, things like that are a little bit different. But if you look at that report, it does provide useful information and trendings and projections about what their organization thought Topsham could sort of absorb in terms of housing, hospitality businesses. And I think it's useful. The reason we did this was because as we talk about what's happening in Topsham, everybody's like, well, we could probably use more housing, but we don't really know how much. Or maybe we could have some more medical offices, but what does that really look like? So that report helped quantify that. Again, that was a little bit ago, but we wanted to bring that up for the members. We are just in the process, we have just finished, of course, updating our bylaws. After the housing thing, we said, all right, let's focus on our core principles. What are our core principles? Well, let's look in the bylaws. So we'll say, hey, these are dated. So with Derek's help and Chris Picard on our board, we went through that and they updated a number of things, particularly with regard to references to the economic development director, who's no longer a staff position right now, and figured we shouldn't make that such an integral part if it's not going to be always available. Lots of references to the select board, which was called the Board of Selectmen. So it was really largely a clerical update, but I think it was long overdue. We adjusted the number of active members on our from 11 down to 9, which I think is a little more manageable. And there was some housekeeping in terms of what needs to be confirmed as far as not, we don't discriminate on the basis of everything. There's a lot of things that were just dated. I think the last update of that was 21, and then 12 before that. So we do hope that gets approved by the board tonight, and we can move forward with that. Looking ahead into the coming year, as I say, we're gonna really be focusing in on this economic development plan. We've had one meeting so far, talking about preparing a report for the town and the select board to reference in terms of help setting the economic priorities and the best opportunities that the town may pursue. Yeah. No surprise that one of them would be Crooker Quadrant, as it's often called, if they were to be able to relocate. Southwest quadrant across the highway. Those things have been considered in the past, and I'm not saying distant past. I think one of the ways TDI can help would be to help commission sort of refreshing the reports that have been done that would provide price estimates for extending utilities, say, from one side to the other. Meeting with DOT to understand if more development happens in either of those areas, what might have to happen at the entrances to get DOT permits. So those are examples of what we would eventually produce. And I hope to be back with that in the spring. And that's all I really had to update tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
The first question I have is on page 4 of 9 in the bylaws. It says that you've crossed out director shall serve without compensation. Is what came to that conclusion? If you don't get paid, why did that have to come out? I was just curious.
We have that as
Oh, directors.
Oh, this is not the agenda.
This is an update.
Okay,
So-
we'll ask the questions during the agenda item.
Oh, okay.
We'll delay this question.
Okay, that's fine. But basically that says that we're volunteers. People like myself who sit on the board, we don't get paid.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. All right, public comment, anything online? No.
No.
Okay. Correspondence, do you receive anything? No. Adjustments to the agenda, we have none. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting of January 18th, 2024. Motion.
Motion to accept the minutes of the January 18th, 2021.
A second. Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion carries. Item number 2, approval to open the polls at 8 a.m. on March 5th, 2024 for the presidential primary election at Mount Airy High School to open and process absentee ballots. I think it's supposed to be following days, not following days. Okay. All right. And then approval to appoint Linda Dumont as warden for the primary election and approval for the registrar to hold extended hours until 7 p.m. on Thursday, February 29th, 2024 for the purpose of voter registration and absentee voting.
So moved. Sorry.
Second, all in favor? Motion carries. Public hearing, we have none, unfinished business, nothing, old business, nothing. On to new business. Item 2405, consideration any appropriate action on adopting the amended Topsham Development Inc. bylaws.
Now come the questions. Thank you for that. Okay, so we were on page 4 of 9, you were saying that the bylaws already said that directors shall not be paid, and so I was just curious why it was removed since you're not paid, what was the purpose of that?
I think it was just an extra
Just too much.
comment, yeah. That particular sentence was unnecessary.
Okay, and then I have another question on page 5 of 9 in item number 7. And it says that any, second line, any director may be removed at any time with or without cause by a majority vote of and selectmen or select board has been removed. So it's now a decision of the board of directors and we can only ratify it and not initiate. How did you come to that?
It was the thought process being we're the ones that work with them, routinely. And if for some reason conflict would arise, that the power would be within the board, I guess if you will, police our own. And,
Okay,
and of course, come back to the select board with a notice, maybe an absence.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Kurt, if that's the case, on page 4, section 1, director shall be appointed by select board to hold office for a term of 3 years or until removed by a majority vote of the select board. So those aren't two compatible sections. I guess if you want to take that.
I can change that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So it should be board of directors and not select. Select board.
Does say also on page 5 that the vacancies of the board shall be filled by the select board for the unexpired term, if that were to be the case. So although I think we can't,
That is correct. You do still interview and appoint. So
Yes.
that should still be the select. What page is that on? Sorry?
page 5, same paragraph we were discussing earlier, last sentence, under number 7.
When it comes to filling the vacancies, if we would, as a board, often discuss who would be a good fit from the community. But sometimes they just come and approach Derek or the town manager as it would be.
Like all boards and committees, fill out an application to be considered, and we set up an interview with the select board, and it'll be select board's choice.
Yeah, so we may nominate or encourage someone to participate, but it's the board's decision.
Thank you so much for responding to my questions.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Motion to approve the adoption of the amended Topsham Development Inc. bylaws.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 2406, consideration and any appropriate action on accepting up to $805.75 in reimbursement for purchased forestry equipment. Chief.
Hi, Chris McGall, Fire Chief. We don't buy forestry equipment every year, but when we do, the Department of Forestry has a reimbursement program where they'll reimburse you half of what you purchased. For them, it puts better equipment and local resources, so it takes the burden off the rangers and forest rangers. So we can get 2 chainsaws, a leaf blower, hose, and hard suction. And if we get everything, I can get up to $805.75 back in reimbursement for that. So pretty straightforward.
What was the third item?
I can get 2, they gave me permission to do 2 chainsaws, a leaf blower, some hose, and a hard suction. And that's where we draft. You have to use a hard suction to draft water out of a pond or a pool or whatever you decide.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Move that we accept and enable the fire department to accept up to $805.75 in reimbursement for purchased forestry equipment.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you much.
All right, 2407, consideration of any appropriate action, recommendation of consultant for the climate action plan update.
Hi, some of you saw me 2 weeks ago when I was here to give an update on the Energy Committee and the work we're doing on this climate action plan. And I'm here tonight to recommend a consultant for the climate action plan. So we've been working since November to find the right consultant. We put out an RFP, we did interviews, we did 3 out of the 4 applications that we received, and that was after tabulating them between Energy Committee and staff. So we finished those 3 interviews, and then Energy Committee made a recommendation to staff, which was included in this memo. And then staff discussed that and ended up agreeing with Energy Committee's recommendation. So we are recommending that FB Environmental is chosen as the consultant for this project. I can go into more detail, but if you'd like to ask questions, that's also fine.
Any questions?
Yeah. All right, so, in looking at the RFP, there were 4 big topic areas that we were looking for. Climate vulnerability of assets, infrastructure, population, and geography. Yeah. That's the 4th one. Look. And I think all of them have really touched on those focus areas in their applications. So for me, in looking at these apps, and reading some of the rationale, I think one of the reasons that FB was selected was that it had more lower hourly rate, which meant that there would be more time spent on the project. But in looking at the other applications, and Wright Pierce in particular, they're suggesting 8 team members versus FB, which only has 4. And Wright Pierce's team includes engineers, which FB does not. And in addition to a GIS specialist, which is critical for this kind of work. They're also cheaper, about three grand cheaper. And the point was made to me at one point that there was more outreach involved with Space FB's proposal. But when you look at Wright Pierce's proposal, there are 3 separate meetings in addition to the public outreach meeting where they're talking about meeting with Public Works, the Water District, the Sewer District. And they also leave open the potential for another or several other outreach meetings. And if you look at the cost breakdown of outreach meetings between FB and Wright Pierce, FB is more expensive per outreach meeting. So even if we added an outreach meeting to Wright Pierce's work plan, it would still be less expensive than FB's proposal. Does that make sense? So I'm just wondering, like, because I'm looking at the memo, it says that hourly rate was a big one, but that doesn't really tell the whole story.
I understand your point there. So I would say with FB, their proposal came in and it very clearly, and I'll just preface this by saying that while cost is important, we have a discrete amount in the grant to spend on this. So having a lower amount can oftentimes be good when you're putting in a bid, but in this case, we have a discrete amount to spend and we would like to get the most out of this as possible. So FB is offering many more hours than Wright Pierce, and it is possible that we could, if we chose Wright Pierce, they would want to have more meetings. Let's do that, but they didn't come in saying that. They, went for the lowest bid they could, and they had 3 meetings with not community. They had it with, the Public Works, Topsham Sewer, and the Water District. And we just felt that that wasn't as indicative as to a commitment to reaching Topsham citizens to see what their concerns are. And that's really what this project is trying to do. All 3 of the proposals are proposing really similar deliverables. They're proposing geospatial analysis of existing information and kind of overlaying that to say, this is an area where it might flood and these are the people there, that's simplifying it, of course. But we liked that FB came in saying, we understand that community engagement is at the heart of this, and that that's what really needs to happen here. And that was a strong consideration, I think, for both staff and for the Energy Committee. And I would say that the engineer aspect of it, we don't have enough money to get real engineering experience on this at this point. We really only have about $26,000 to spend on a consultant. And the two firms that had engineers on staff, Kleinfelder and Wright Pierce, they weren't actually really offering engineering services. They had engineers on the staff, and I heard at some points that, they have a way of looking at things, and that might be helpful. But that wasn't really something that I personally saw in the proposals. I saw similar deliverables, and I saw higher hourly rates for engineers because they have a higher type of education and, base pay. FB had a small team, which you might think that's not a good thing, but it means that they're nimble, they're flexible. They can hear us say, we need to go in this different direction, and they can respond. And that was, I think, a plus for a lot of the people reviewing these.
So your point about, community engagement being a big important piece of this, that's not in the important criteria in the RFP. The important criteria are project approach, experience, qualifications, references, proposed schedule, and cost proposal. So if community engagement had been one of those, we might have actually gotten a different response from some of the other applicants. But that wasn't listed in the RFP, so it wasn't addressed. FB did, which is great, but it shouldn't be considered, the key to making a decision on this because it wasn't in the request for proposals. So FB has a great application, don't get me wrong, and they certainly address a few things that the others don't, but I mean, when we're looking at the request for proposals strictly as the evaluation piece, which, I used to review proposals, especially around climate, for 11 years, and if you go outside of that criteria and put special weight on something that wasn't mentioned in the request, it shouldn't count against someone who didn't include it in their proposal. It can certainly add some points, but it's not a decider. It's always been my experience.
I apologize, I don't have the RFP in front of me, but I was under the impression that it was under one of those as an important aspect of it.
Okay, there's just 4 of them listed under important criteria on page 5. Yeah, I guess, so let me preface this by saying, huge believer, climate change, human induced, absolutely. I do this for work every day. I go out and monitor, and if any of you don't believe it, then I invite you to come muck around in the mud flats with me and count things. Not a lot of fun. It's the first year ever that Brunswick has a higher standing stock of hard shell plants and steamers. And that's because of climate change impacts. And it's frightening, obviously, especially for coastal economy. But looking at what a municipality can do, practically speaking, especially for such a small amount of money, and I'm still not clear what Sea Grant is doing in all this. It's kind of confusing to me. But I think the most important thing we can do right now as a town is focus on inundation issues, storm surge issues, infrastructure issues. We could pass a target like Brunswick did for emissions. It does nothing. It's a feel-good thing. If we really want to change emissions, then we put a passenger train in on train tracks and then bike path. But setting a target for emissions isn't going to impact the way we drive. We don't have jurisdiction over that at all. I mean, we can set a target for it for sure. That's great. And definitely needed for sure. But unless like voting, Bath, Saginaw County, Kennebec County enact similar ordinances or targets, nothing's going to change. So I guess from my perspective, this needs to be focused on our critical infrastructure, our vulnerable populations, and with the very small amount of money that we have, I thought Wright Pierce's proposal was stronger in that regard. My opinion. But I'm going to shut up because I've been talking for a while. So if you guys have other thoughts, please jump in.
I have served on committees, that chose a higher priced one because the fit seemed better in terms of how they understood what we were doing. Can you explain to us what the benefit is that you see with choosing I lost the paper here.
Exactly.
FB, Environmental Associates.
Yeah, I would say that I've already touched on it a little bit, so I tried to get at this a little bit, but I think that the deliverables that we're getting from each of the three of them are fairly similar, quite honestly, so that makes it a little bit hard. So I think it's why we maybe delved into things that aren't necessarily the high up focus of the RFP. I think that personally, the small aspect of FB with a process like this that is high view, overarching, just trying to get an idea of where we're at. We'll need to do more work after this to get into the nitty gritty. That they've had the ability to do that. They have a track record with the planning department as well, and that was considered as well. That's good. We have a good rapport with them. They have the most experience doing this type of work in this area of any of the three firms. Ray Pierce hasn't done this type of work at all. They've done climate action, resiliency kind of work for wastewater and sewer departments, which is great. That work needs to be done and they seem to be doing it very well. But they haven't done this, which also needs to look at things besides wastewater and sewer. So FB had done work with Goldsboro in a very similar regard, where they asked them to look at their town, look at infrastructure that might be at risk, and what can they do about it? And they did that, and we contacted Goldsboro as one of their references, and they had really glowing reviews about working with them. We asked them about the engineering component because that had been brought up, that they didn't have engineers on staff, and they said that they did a great job of putting them in contact with potential firms to do the work after they did this high level work, because at this point, it's less about engineering and it's more about just looking at the areas on GIS, which I understand Matt's point about a GIS specialist. I think that the qualifications of FB also lend them to that. And the FB had a focus on the town as a whole and really gathering information from the people, which is supposed to be a part of this. The vulnerability assessment is part of this. And they seem to have the best approach and understanding of doing that. I would say that the committee felt that way, and planning staff. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I have a question. Going through this now, with the information that Matt was talking about. Can you help me understand the difference in weight? On the RFP, there are 4 tasks that the consultant's scope of work was for, and then at the very bottom, there was important criteria. Those don't necessarily correlate. I'm just wondering, were you guys making the decision based on the tasks or the important criteria? Where did you put your weight?
I believe both were considered.
You know? Just, what's your sort of deadline for completing this task?
The hiring of the consultant?
No, just the overall.
The
plan.
climate action
Yeah.
plan. We are, I think, have a 2-year grant cycle, so we would like to have this kind of wrapped up in about a year so that it can get on the warrant for the 2025 summer town meeting.
And do you think over that period of time, a smaller staff will be able to essentially meet all those targets within that time period?
I do, because for me, it's about the hours, not the amount of people. Sometimes too many people can muddy the waters.
My point is, there's a certain amount of hours in a week that they're gonna work. It's not where you're thinking they're gonna be working very industriously during the week. Their productivity will be higher.
I mean, I would trust them to meet the hours that they've told us that they'll meet, in the time frame that they've set out. I don't think getting into that is, I can't say. We've had good experiences with FB. We have no reason to believe that they wouldn't be able to meet what they've set out.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments?
Sea Grant. What's up with Sea Grant?
They are doing work on the vulnerability assessment aspect of it, the social vulnerability. I believe most of their work is in kind.
Surprising. It's not a cheap organization to work with. And CBP is involved with some of a tenuous connection here because we're not on Castle Bay. That's the focus.
Yeah, that's the combo to me, is that the person working on it, Jessica Brunacini, is associated with both, and through that are getting in-kind work on a social vulnerability assessment.
Fair enough.
Okay, anyone make a motion?
Me?
All right, anyone? I was looking at you when I'm talking. I'm sorry.
It it won't be the recommendation, so it probably shouldn't come from me.
I'll
Well,
make a motion. I'll make a motion, that's fine. All right. Motion, the motion is to approve the recommendation of FB Environmental as a consultant for the climate action plan update.
So,
Your second,
Second.
you just seconded, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 2408, consideration of any appropriate action to accept the town manager's resignation effective April 12th, 2024.
Next agenda item.
But if we don't make a motion?
I think we're in at-will state, we don't actually have to accept
Yeah.
it, we just have to acknowledge it.
So I have to take a case.
No, you want to make a few remarks, feel free to.
I can make remarks before I leave. I put in, this official resignation, letter to the select board via email, on the 22nd of January. Knowing that I put this up for a discussion for the date, today. My contract as it exists, asks for a 30-day notification. This is about 80 days, I think, or somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm only leaving for personal interest, and I'll get into some sort of goodbye at a later date, but, all for the good. It's all for my family and just retiring from government. I will say, the climate support from all of you and the accomplishments we've had over the 5 years has been, something I'll always remember.
Made it through COVID, man.
I did. But I'm not leaving for any other reason but that. I think the staff is in great hands with the select boards that I work for. It's good. I think this one is really good, engaged. I think, and I tell people this all the time, when you have an all-star staff here in Topsham, our department head is sensational as well as our staff. And I think the culture is a place that I think anybody would want to come to and thrive in. So with that being said, I feel good about this resignation. I'd like to see a seamless transition to new leadership, and I will be available to help out with that. And just finishing up some of the things that are my responsibility to get through the big items like, the budget and a few other things that.
Minor details.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking to see if this date is good with the board.
Any questions about the date? 2025, right?
April 12th.
All right.
I don't have any objections to that date, we'll miss you for sure.
All right, so we're just gonna make a motion to acknowledge the date. All right. Motion to approve and accept the nominator's resignation effective April 12th, 2024.
Second.
Moving second. All in favor? Motion carries.
Great.
All right, that's the rest of our regular agenda. Executive session, Article 2409, enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056A to discuss personnel matters.
You can approve the